President Joe Biden in Chicago today. He's going to give a big speech about what they call Bidenomics, about the economy. And the White House has said that he's going to reassure the American public with this big speech about the economy that things are moving in the right direction. But I think a lot of the polling suggests that America does not think that the country's moving in the right direction. This as we get closer to the 2024 election and a whole bunch of moving pieces there when it comes to both sides. But with the president coming to Chicago, he's not the only one visiting. You've got migrants from the southern U.S. border in Chicago as well, and costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars, including for housing and for health care. But what about the conversations that need to be had with the Biden administration about fixing the border? And that was something that you heard screamed during a recent Chicago City Council meeting where somebody in the background, while they were voting to approve $51 million for housing for migrants, you heard somebody scream, "Tell the president to close the border." Well, is Governor J.B. Pritzker going to tell President Joe Biden that when Biden's in Chicago today? Is the governor going to say, close the border? Well, the governor was asked about this yesterday at a separate unrelated event. He was asked in Chicago what he's going to talk to the president about when it comes to the border issue. Here's what the governor said is going to be his talking point.
You're asking if I will talk to the president about it. If I do, it will be the 10th time that I've had interactions with the White House or directly with the president about the migrant crisis, about the problem of inhumane governors in Florida and Texas who are literally shipping people around the country and ignoring their rights, what should be their right to choose where they want to live.
I want to just pause on that because the governor isn't starting with President Biden, you need to close the border. You need to do more to keep people from coming across the southern U.S. border. No, the governor is instead wanting to turn the target on the other governors in border states that are getting inundated and lacking the resources to take care of the issue, and seeing signs posted as sanctuary state or sanctuary city or welcoming city and saying, okay, well, here you go. You're a welcoming city. But again, back to Governor J.B. Pritzker in his response to what he's going to talk to Joe Biden about whenever Biden is in town today for a big speech. And is he going to talk about the migrant issue? Here is more from Governor J.B. Pritzker.
They are legal in this country, I want to point out. People who are asylum seekers have papers to be in this country, so they should be able to
get their hearings moving a little faster.
Absolutely, and I've had those conversations. It's not just the president. You know that the Customs and Border Patrol, the Department of Homeland Security, all are involved in the processes that people go through. We want to make sure that they're not only moving quickly through that process, but we have a lot of people who've been in this country now since August. They're here legally. They're following the law, doing everything they're supposed to do, and they just want to go get a job. And I think that they should have the ability to go get a job. By the way, this is a moment when we need workers. And so it would be great if we could hire them. And we should, of course, move our undocumented immigrants also through processes in which they can become legal and they can get jobs. But you were asking about migrants. And look, I think the city of Chicago is today doing a great deal more than it was several months ago even to address the migrant crisis. There are many more people who are getting shelter through the city of Chicago as a result of the work being done under this new administration than had been done before. And I think it's partly an evolution of learning, because this was a new thing. Nobody had seen anything like this before. Thousands of people showing up in a very short period of time who needed, health care and food and shelter. And now I think the city has, with the help of the state, I might add, because we certainly have put dollars and people significantly forward, as we did from August on. But we all are working very closely together to make sure that we're addressing this crisis. But it's a crisis, and it will remain one as long as these governors in other states are just throwing people onto buses and honestly not telling them why they're going where they're going, or where they're going in some cases. And as you know, there are now charges being considered against the governor of Florida for kidnapping, for throwing people onto, transportation and sending them somewhere where they didn't want to go.
But there are also possible impeachment movements happening against President Joe Biden for having such a porous southern U.S. border. And what do you do about those who may be violating federal law by not complying with federal immigration detention orders like Illinois law enforcement are not allowed to do by state law? Obviously, there's kind of a picking and choosing of which things to talk about, and all for certain what people could speculate is political motivations, but fascinating to see this. But also, the governor asked yesterday about his move to control the cost of migrant health care that's subsidized by taxpayers. If you recall, we had 65 and up for non-citizens being covered back in 2020. They expanded that to 42 and up back in 2022. And this year, the governor is looking to control those costs because it was estimated to be $1.1 billion. He's only going to be able to spend $550 million, so he's going to be essentially freezing the program for those 42 and up. But at the same time, he's previously said that we save money down the road by investing in health care up front. But if their interesting question asked yesterday was, if that's the case, then why are you freezing the program for 42 and up? And here's the governor responding to that question.
As you know, we don't have universal health care in the United States. There are people who are citizens, there are people who are legal residents, and there are undocumented immigrants who don't have health care. And I would like to provide health care for everybody in the United States. I believe in universal health care. It is also true that we have not had the resources in the United States to do that. And we have never had universal health care. In Illinois, though, we've come closer than ever before. We've increased significantly, hundreds of thousands more people are covered by Medicaid, for example, in the state of Illinois because of work that we did in our administration. We are lowering costs for people who have private pay health insurance. And under my administration, we created the program that is providing undocumented immigrants with health care. They're people who are in this program, and the couple of thousand more that are able to join the program still today, are getting basic health care, the ability to go to a doctor essentially for free, getting pharmaceuticals, prescription drugs for free, essentially. And to be honest with you, at a much lower cost to all of us going to hospitals in their emergency rooms, as well as whether they have a long-term stay.
Well, and the governor says that they're getting these things, quote, for free, but the taxpayers are paying for it, right? And even if they aren't covering the healthcare subsidies for those 42 and up, if those individuals go to a hospital, that's going to cost eventually. The hospital is going to have to get reimbursed somehow. Either they're going to go back to the taxpayers for the state of Illinois, or they're going to have to increase costs on overall health care. So again, the conversation is important because we're going to be spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this, and being able to track that's important as well. But the governor also asked yesterday, of course, nothing's, quote, free. Taxpayers are footing the bill on this, but taxpayers are preparing to pay more for gas taxes and grocery taxes. The governor was asked yesterday about the increase in the grocery tax come July 1st. That's Saturday. So you're going to be paying from 0% to 1% on those groceries, and that was a measure that was ultimately frozen during an election year, if you recall. But here's the governor talking about that particular issue.
Dan, I hope you'll report, you haven't yet, so I'm going to ask you to do it now, report on the fact that the grocery tax doesn't go to the state of Illinois. It goes to local governments. What we did last year was a temporary measure because we had very high inflation. Inflation, you may notice, has come down. But we had very high inflation, and we wanted to do everything that we could, and we provided $1.8 billion of tax relief for families across Illinois. The grocery tax was one of them, but what we did was we replaced the money that local governments were getting from that grocery tax for the year at the state level. We provided the money to replace that tax. Now, I now hear often Republicans complaining that the grocery tax is being reimposed, but these are the same folks who don't have a solution for, well, how would you reimburse local governments, therefore, for the grocery tax that you would like to get rid of? I would like very much to eliminate entirely the grocery tax, but it is a matter of local governments and what they would do if they didn't have that income as a result of the grocery tax.
So, but it's not just the grocery tax. You've got the gas tax that's also going to go up a few pennies, but that's the second time this year the gas tax in Illinois is going up. Illinois already has the highest gas tax in the region and like the second or third highest gas tax in the country. So taxpayers are going to be paying even more. But speaking of gas, there's going to be a lot of it used in Chicago for NASCAR coming up this weekend. And Governor Pritzker was asked if he's going to be at the NASCAR races in Chicago for that street race. And by the way, a street race that's going to include our very own Justin Allgaier from the Riverton area here just north of Springfield. So best of luck to him. But you've got the governor saying no, he's not going to be at NASCAR.
I will. I hate to say I will not be on the street for NASCAR. Yes, if that was your question, that's not where I'll be.
Will you be out there at all?
I will not be at NASCAR. It's just unfortunate, but I made plans long before the NASCAR ever got, put into Chicago that I wasn't going to be there. So.
I'd love to know what his plans are. And that wasn't a follow-up question. That would have been a pretty quick follow-up question if I was at the news conference. Well, what are your plans? Where are you going? What took precedence more than a year ago when this was announced that you already had on your calendar? Is it an international conference of sorts? Is it, I don't know, just throwing it out there, some kind of Davos thing or a Bilderberg thing, or what's your plan for the timing of that event? So, anyways, just an overview of some of the things happening in and around Illinois, especially when it comes to the migrant issue, especially when it comes to the taxes issue, and you got NASCAR alongside President Joe Biden and more migrants up in Chicago visit.